Today's guest is someone who makes life with diabetes a whole lot simpler. Coach Ken Kniss is a diabetes health coach, nutrition and strength coach, and the host of the Healthy Diabetic Podcast. Ken, thank you for being here. This is so exciting, and I want everyone to know a little bit more about what inspired you to become a diabetes health coach and strength coach.
So I think the story of the coaching aspect has been an interesting evolution. Um, I started my coaching career in the fitness industry in 2008, a year after I was diagnosed with type 1. I was diagnosed with type 1 right after college. I didn't know what the heck I was gonna do with this piece of paper that supposedly said I was smart. And then I worked for a year at the YMCA just with teens, and that kind of almost skyrocketed, like, this wanting to be part of young people's lives and trying to be a mentor. So then I went and I trained, to try to be in the Arena Football League, right after that, and that's how I kinda got situated with the coaching aspect, and every single year from that, I've learned something new that has really skyrocketed to me to where I am now, from just the fitness aspect to the mental health aspect, in the fitness part of our journeys, to the nutrition aspect, having a very small understanding of nutrition at first, but now with so much experimentation like we do with diabetes, it's like you just learn and learn and learn and learn what works for you. So the nutrition piece, and then, leaving a very toxic environment in the fitness industry where I first started, to now being on my own, um, to then creating and buying and building a brand with a uh, colleague of mine from Lifetime Fitness, to then us basically being partners for, what was that? Probably 6 or 7 years, and then me starting my podcast, and then deciding out of the blue that I should just get out of the partnership business and really focus on diabetes coaching. And here I am now, you know, still trying to do all of it. But I think for me that evolution has been really interesting because I've learned so much about coaching, and it was really cool for me because I had some coaching background from the fitness part when I moved into the diabetes realm. And then after doing, what was it, probably 2 years of my podcast, and just learning and learning and learning what people really were struggling with and what challenges were and what people really needed help with. Because when I first started that podcast, I had an idea in my head because of the things that I experienced, but I had no idea what people were actually struggling with and what people actually needed. So I think that I'm in a really good precarious spot because I've had literally hundreds and hundreds of conversations with different people from all over the world, with every walks of life, every different types of diabetes, um, to now be in the position I am now, to really be one of these individuals like yourself, Maddie, that is just so passionate for people to just thrive and live with diabetes.
Absolutely. And I'm just gonna throw it out there. Shameless plug. If you missed it, we had an awesome episode on your podcast. So we'll definitely make sure that there's some info in the show notes for that because it was a great time. And
It was a
I
good time.
yeah, it was so fun. So thank you for having me there. Thank you for being here. And I just wanted to say too, if you aren't already familiar with Coach Ken, I we've been familiar with each other for a while now, and I really do think that your passion comes through. I can see that in in how you say what you say, how you deliver what it is that you deliver, and I admire that a lot. I think that that's something that people need, and I always ask myself this question in business, at least. Stick with me. I promise this is worth it if you're listening. I always ask, why me? Right? And
Mm.
at the end of the day, I come down to the fact that it's me, right? Because you teach diabetes, I teach diabetes. Someone else teaches nutrition, I teach nutrition. Someone else does this, I do this. But at the end of the day, you have to find the people you align with. And I see you as one of those standout individuals that people can align with. And so I really just, want to give the plug. And so definitely make sure that you listen to that podcast if you haven't. After this one, of course, you're still listening here.
And
So
yeah, this one first.
Absolutely. So, okay, so I have a question just to kind of
Yeah.
get deep really quick. So, obviously, you kind of alluded to this already. Diabetes is a lot. It's a lot, but we figure it out one day at a time, one experiment at a time, one slice of pizza at a time, right? And so, my question for you is actually the simplification. What does simplifying diabetes actually mean to you? What does that look like?
For me, I think it is making as many choices or as many decisions muscle memory as possible. For so long when I was first diagnosed, I was in denial, I was depressed. I literally probably went through every single negative emotion when I was first diagnosed, for 3, almost 4 years because I had no support. I had no one. I had 0 support. I didn't know where to get I didn't know where to get education. I didn't know what to do anything. I had just come off of being a 3-sport athlete in college, like, in the prime probably shape of my life, and now I've got diabetes, and with having 0 support, not even getting pushed to, on the right path of being maybe set up to get support because I was diagnosed in my family practitioner's office, blood sugar was 450, and they just gave me a 70/30 insulin pen, gave me a glucose monitor, said, "We'll see you back in 2 weeks." That was literally my education. That was literally everything I got. So I fell into a dark, dark place and hid it for a long, long time. So for me, simplifying diabetes is all about trying to make sure that the mental load of diabetes doesn't overpower your decisions, doesn't overpower everything that you're thinking about. Diabetes shouldn't be something that we think about 24/7. Like
Absolutely.
this 180 when I heard about this 180 plus decisions that we make every day, I was like, "What the heck? Am I doing something wrong? I'm not making 180 plus decisions every single day." So I decided to just do an experiment myself. How many true decisions do I make every single day on a consistent basis? Because I think that's the key that we all have to understand is like the consistency of how we manage this condition is so important. So on a consistent basis every single day, Monday through Friday, because Saturday, Sunday is different for me. Monday through Friday, I make about maybe 20 to 25 decisions every single day, diabetes related decisions. So the 180 decisions I have compacted into these are the trend things that I do every single day. Now, I don't travel all the time, at least not yet. I'm not speaking on a crazy, crazy amount yet. That's the future goal. So that's not part of the decision-making process. If I was traveling all the time and that adds a whole 'nother dynamic, right? I know you're traveling all the time and doing things, so so taking the things that are happening on a consistent basis every single day and being hyper focused on those decisions, not the other decisions that are also part of the 42 factors that affect blood sugar that don't even affect like that we don't even deal with every single day, right? So for me, that's what simplifying diabetes is because it's a less of a mental load. It's less of a mental burden because I don't have to worry about all these things that I'm not even coming in front of.
Oh my goodness. Mind blown. Of course, these are things that I love to talk about all the time, but just the way you phrase everything is so fantastic. And several things came to my mind. I was like, I think that you have to expand to simplify, right? So you have to knowledge is power. You have to know it to then say, okay, now I just do this about it, right? So there's this thing that happens, I think, where we have to do this before we can do this.
Mm.
Depending on where everyone is, maybe it's a little different. But you have to understand those things. And something else that I was thinking about is I don't know if you ever call yourself this, but I call myself a professional diabetic. We're literally professional diabetics. And just to be clear, we still have to put in a lot of this work too. We still have to make those choices. We still get things wrong. And so I think the plug is just it's not about perfection, it's about progress. And you have to give yourself kindness throughout your learning experiences because I'm learning every day and my blood sugar is not perfect on any day. If it was, I don't think I would be diabetic.
Yeah. There's a really cool saying that, we talk about at the gym a lot. It's process over prize. So many people think about the end result instead of what are the steps that I have to do on a consistent basis to get there. Because thinking back to all the challenges and tribulations and all the bad crap that I had to go through to get to where I'm at now of understanding how to deal with this condition for myself, um, for me, in everything I talk about, it's all about sustainability. If it's not sustainable, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good I am at dosing. It doesn't matter how good I am at carb counting. It doesn't matter how good I am at managing my blood sugar during exercise. None of that matters if it's not sustainable because you're not going to do it for the rest of your life. And for me, that is the biggest thing that I constantly am trying to talk about, both in the fitness aspect, the food aspect, and the living with diabetes aspect. Because if you don't have that sustainability, it's not gonna work.
Gosh, absolutely. You're so right. Sustainability is key. You can have one great day, but it may not be sustainable. If you can find sustainable and successful habits, you change the game for yourself. And so you've alluded to, of course, your wonderful background in physical activity here. So if you will, indulge us for a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about how you balance strength training and blood sugar control. And maybe let's assume someone doesn't necessarily know what this conversation looks like yet.
Yeah, I think the first thing that everyone has to understand is what type of exercise are you doing? Because the different types of exercise is going to elicit a different response to your blood sugars. That's the first thing. I think the second thing that you have to understand is what is the time of day that you're gonna do it, right? So for some people like to fast in the morning. For me, I would love to do that, but I always plummet when I if I don't have some type of energy.
Ah, really?
Yeah, I always do, especially if I'm doing high intensity. Sometimes I'm okay if I'm doing strength training, but most of the time, if I'm doing high intensity, I'm gonna plummet if I don't have something, to help. Um and I think that the other thing that's really important with exercise is insulin on board. How much insulin on board do you have? Do you have insulin on board? Do you actually need insulin on board? And that's why a lot of people like fasting in the morning because they're not going to have tons of insulin on board because they didn't just eat. So I think those three things for me, if we can align those three things for someone, all of the headache, all of the problems, at least I would say 90% of the problems are going to take care of themselves when you're talking about plummeting, low hypoglycemia, or spiking to crazy numbers. I think those are the 3 things that you start with.
That's fantastic, and I agree completely. I think that that makes a world of a difference, and I do think it's possible to change as well, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
there were times in my life where I had a legs push-pull split that was happening in the afternoons when I would have been on board, but now I'm doing, like, a CrossFit boot camp type thing at 6 AM. I don't eat beforehand, and my blood sugar stays somewhere between 100 to 160, and I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
Now, some people feel super nauseous if they work out fasted. So it's all about your body, right? No one else is in your body. No one else is living your life. No one else has your diabetes. And so if you can find what works for you or what doesn't, then you can do something about it.
I think yeah, and I think the other thing that you alluded to that's really important to that is what is your comfortability factor of where you want your
Yeah.
blood sugar? Because I think that's the other thing with this is some people are comfortable being at 160. Some people aren't comfortable being 160. Some people are just don't wanna go low, and they don't even care where they end up, after they're done, right? So I think that is the other thing that you have to ask yourself is like, where is your comfortability factor? But then also be realistic and honest with yourself, right? For me, like I hate when I go over 150. I don't care if I'm exercising, I don't care if I'm eating, I don't care. Like that's my target. That's my end range target where I want to try to always stay under. And so I think that is a very important piece for people to understand is that concept of where are you the most comfortable and are you being honest with yourself with that number?
Yeah, and maybe it's a physical comfort, but also it's emotional comfort, right? How do you feel? Because I always say the higher I am, the more of a hangover it feels like, just
Mm,
dehydration, thirst, slight irritation. I don't feel right in my body or my mind. That's how a really high blood sugar feels.
yeah.
So the closer I get to that, I don't want to work out. I don't feel good. And so keeping it within a range that
Mhm.
works for me, I'm also not scared of a 70 blood sugar. Now it's different if I'm tanking versus if I'm, 70, like just kind of hanging out, trending down a little
Yeah.
bit. And so that context of, yeah, your comfort levels is key. And something I'd like to maybe add is one day at a time, one step at a time. If you're hearing us and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm only comfortable working out if I'm 200 or 300, we want to validate that too. If that's where you're starting, absolutely. But take it one step at a time. Maybe tomorrow, could we set the range at 190 to 290. If you're trying to get, maybe closer or more controlled blood sugar, okay, could we set it to 190 to 290 instead of 200 to 300? See how that goes this week. 180 to 280, 170 to 270. It'll take some time, weeks, months, maybe, but you'll get there if that's what you really want. It's all up to you.
Yeah, I love that because because you're always also speaking, Maddie, to something that's very important in my thought process of the mental health piece, right? If I'm someone who feels like I need to be at 250, 300 when I exercise, we need to take one step at a time for 100%. And I would even almost add to that going deeper of like, okay, what is the fear behind you being that high? W We gotta dig into that and peel back those onions because maybe it's just a fear thing or maybe it's a comfortability thing. We need to have that conversation as well.
Oh my gosh, yes. I actually just had I had an interview with, someone who writes for a magazine this morning, and I'm excited to see that when it comes out, probably next month. But he was asking me these questions. He does not have type 1 diabetes. So he was asking me these questions about how people with diabetes function, and, we were talking about the mindset, the mind piece of maybe going to a meal at a restaurant or something like that, and maybe having some fears about highs or lows, whatever it may be. And I was trying to explain the complexity of, well, it could be that we have these external factors, or it could be that we have these internal factors. So, for example, if maybe you were diagnosed as a kid, let's just say, and if growing up, your family was like, you can't eat that, you can't eat that, can't eat that, you might have some foods or food fears, right? Some blood sugar fears related to those foods, maybe. Or if your endocrinologist, every single time you go in, every 3, 6, 12 months, whatever it may be, is like, do better, do better, do better. And you're continuously improving your A1C, but they're just saying do better. So you're not even validated in that.
Yep.
Sometimes that can be a cause too, or sometimes it's not diabetes related at all. Maybe someone in your early childhood was like, hey, you suck. And then all of a sudden now you perceive any feedback as you suck. Whoa. Now that's something to think about too. It gets very complex. There's a lot of different circles that we're talking about here, but if you can figure it out for yourself, it's hard work. Give yourself that kindness if you're going to do that work. But oh my gosh, the reward it can bring to have that awareness and then to be able to build from there, game changing. I was going to ask you about mindset too today, so I love that we're already talking about that.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you think is especially important when it comes to mindset for managing diabetes, maybe let's say long term?
I think for me, the biggest thing with mindset is, making sure that you are secure in your identity and who you are, and also being ultra, ultra honest with yourself about what you want from diabetes. Because those 3 questions right there will set the stage for you for how you're gonna move forward. And
Gosh.
when I feel like I think about back to my journey and how all 3 of those pieces were out of alignment. And when all 3 of those pieces were out of alignment, I felt like absolute crap internally. I hid it so well from everybody. My colleagues didn't know that I was having, like, all these mental struggles. Heck, my wife now, girlfriend at the time, had no idea that I was dealing with these mental struggles. So, I think if those 3 things aren't in alignment, it's a recipe for disaster, burnout, depression, what you name it. So I think for me, that is the first thing that I always try to focus on with people is, are those 3 things in alignment? Because if they're not, I don't care what other challenges you have, we have to start there.
Absolutely. And you mentioned so many fantastic things to consider. I want to talk about burnout, but before we do, something specifically that you just said is you have to figure out what you want out of diabetes. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? What might those options be? It doesn't have to be all inclusive as a list, but what does that actually mean to someone if they're like, what do I want out of diabetes? I want it to go away. What do you mean?
Yeah. Um, for me, the biggest thing is you have to be honest with yourself. Because if you're not honest with yourself, then you're gonna go down that rabbit hole like, "Oh, I don't wanna have diabetes." Well, it everyone would not wanna have diabetes, and I'm sorry to say it's here, you have it. And if you don't accept that, in whatever way that is for you, then you're going to have a lot of trouble moving forward, regardless of the education, regardless of your strategy, it doesn't matter. So for me, the acceptance piece is really big. And once you can accept it, now you can start asking things. How do you want to live with this? Do you want to control your every waking moment? Of course you don't, right? Do you want it to control you when you eat or when you think about food? Do you want it to control you when, you think about carbohydrates? Do you want it to control you when you are thinking about how many carbohydrates you actually should be eating? Like, no, no one wants that. No one wants that. Everyone wants the freedom to live their life. And for me, when I truly understood that piece, that this condition does not control me, it's just part of me. I tell a funny story sometimes when from my legacy, when I finally kick the bucket, my plan is to turn to diabetes and give it a high five and say, "We made it. Thank you so much." Right? Because every single time that we sit there and we play the victim of the fact that we have diabetes, we play the victim of we can't do whatever we want. Now we're in a position that it's in control and you're not in control from the mental aspect of this.
Absolutely. I think, choosing your perspective is a key thing. Sometimes it's hard to make that choice, especially if you've just been diagnosed and you're like, "WTF is going on?" Right?
Yeah.
That's a choice I wasn't able to make for years, so many years. But then finally, something switched for me, and I said 2 things, and I meant them kind of silly, but they're actually, I guess I manifested them. But thing number 1 is I said, "Okay, I hate my diabetes." I hated it at the time. I really capital H, hated it. So I hate diabetes, and if I can't cure it, then it's gonna pay for itself. So I decided to work in diabetes somehow. That was for my healing, but then it spiraled more so into I am who I wish I would have had. And every time I get to help someone make a breakthrough, every time someone says, "Maddie, this is what happened," or "Now I can do this," or "Because like this makes sense, and now I get to X, Y, Z, live your life on your own terms," it heals 14-year-old Maddie, angry, why me 14-year-old Maddie. And so like, selfishly, I think that part of it is I do it for her, and I don't hate diabetes anymore because of it, because it's given me purpose, drive, friends, dia family, dia besties, all of these things that I wouldn't have had. I don't know what I would do without diabetes now. And I got lucky being diagnosed at 14, right? It's kind of that perfect age where you're old enough to carb count, young enough to benefit from your parents' insurance, right? So
Yeah.
that was lucky for me for sure. But I think especially thinking about teenage years, a lot of people go through burnout in their years of in those that anger. A lot of people who are diagnosed in childhood that can come out in the teen years with hormonal changes. And then for of course adults, it varies. It depends on the season and the reason. So tell us a little bit more about that burnout. What would you maybe say to someone if they are feeling burned out, or what's the first steps that someone might need to take?
Again, I think for me, again, it goes back to the why piece. It always comes back to why for me. What are the things that are happening in your life that is making you feel this anxiety? Why are you feeling this anxiety? What emotions are you feeling when you are feeling burnt out, when you're feeling depressed? Do you feel uncontrolled? Do you feel like you're not in control? Like, so for me, those simple questions, open-ended questions, really help shape the reasons why these emotions are coming up in the first place. Because that's burnout. It for me, burnout is all about the internal emotion that I have about the situation or the perspective that I have about a specific thing. It might not even be diabetes, but diabetes might just be the nail on the camel's back on the camel or that whatever the phrase is I'm trying to say, right? So diabetes might just be that piece, right? It might be that you had a really bad childhood. It might be that, like me, your parents were divorced when you were 5 years old and you had a really hard time with it, and you got all this childhood trauma, and now you have this other condition that you're just not 100% sure about and how to deal with it, where it where it lays and aligns in your life, and I think for me, once we can get clear on that, like, the burnout stuff and the anxiety and the depression starts decreasing, and now we can start the real healing.
I love this, and I mean, I already knew this coming in. I know how aligned we are in a lot of we believe and what it
Yeah.
is that we talk about. So, selfishly, I have a pop question for you.
Oh, love it.
Is there any advice that you give that people tend to be surprised by?
Mm. Um, I think I think there's a couple, but I think the one that comes to mind is that, uh, you don't really need your doctor. That your doctor is not there to help you live with diabetes. Your doctor, his his or her, your medical team, their job is to help you understand how the numbers work and to give you ratios, but your job is to experiment with those ratios and figure out what the right ratios are for you. Because every single one of us, whether you've been diagnosed for a month or whether you've been diagnosed for 60 years, I don't care what it is. Every single one of us has had to change those ratios multiple times. And I think for me, that is probably the thing that people really are, like, thrown back on when I say, like, you actually are smarter than your doctor, you don't really need them, and you need to reframe your relationship with them, because so many of us go into those appointments where you have all this anxiety because we know that we could have done better, or we should have done better yesterday, or we could have done better last month, or we had all these high fluctuations, we're trying to figure stuff out, and then now we have all this anxiety, and we're going to our doctor, and they're saying, "Okay, why is your A1C at this? Why were 2 weeks ago, because that's the data that they're getting from your downloads. Why 2 weeks ago were you hot? I don't know, doc. That was 2 freaking weeks ago. What are you talking about?" Right? So it's that for me, I think that is the biggest thing that people get thrown aback about when I say that, because we're taught that they know everything. And I mean, here's the disclaimer, everybody, right? And I say this on my show all the time. We need them. They're part of our management system. They're part of our team. They're part of our tool. They're part of our tool in our toolbox. But they don't have the time. They don't have the knowledge, in my opinion, to help us thrive and help us figure out the day to day. They just don't. And I think for me, that is the one of the biggest messages in what I am having challenges with of on social media, on my show, in my coaching, in my consultations with people, of having people understand the reality of that situation and truly believe it. Because that's the other thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're listening to this, by the way, and you're like, nope, my doctor is the most insightful, empowering, inspiring, yada yada, keep them. But absolutely, I don't know if you saw this, but I published a book this month, and it's called "You Have Permission." Eat sugar. That's one of my most surprising things. Eat
Mhm.
sugar, fire your doctor, and rewrite the rules of type 1 diabetes. You hit it on the head because they may not be your cup of tea. Not everyone is. That's what we talked about earlier, right? With the diabetes coach too. And so finding someone you align with takes you steps farther. But then yeah, from there, they may have the science, they may have a little bit of the strategy, but especially if they don't have diabetes, they're not living your day. They're not eating your spaghetti tacos or whatever you choose to eat. That's something that we eat in
Spaghetti
my family.
tacos, nice. We might have to have another conversation about spaghetti taco.
Oh, we will. Oh, we will, because my mom has the best spaghetti recipe, and I used to have a little bit of a fear of it. I got over that, and now it's spaghetti tacos. iCarly reference for anyone who watched that show. It's fun. It's fun, and it can be fun, right? Food can be fun. It doesn't have to be this demon. It doesn't have to be something we fear. And I was actually going to ask you a little bit about some nutrition things too. I was curious about your thought on, well, of course, several things, but is there anything that you talk about when it comes to like food myths or anything that you wish people would just stop thinking or saying about food and type 1 diabetes?
Yes, absolutely.
Always.
There's always, I think for me, the number one thing that irritates me and is sometimes a challenge to get people to understand is that it's not. the carbohydrate, the fat, the sugar, it's not their fault. It's the quality of what you're consuming. It's
Mm,
how you're consuming it. It's the strategy that you have when you're consuming food. It is not it's not the carbohydrate's fault of why you have post-meal spikes. It's just not. It's how
Think
you're
about
getting
diabetes
all
type
the
2.
things.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Yep.
again exactly, and it's funny that you say that because I have a I'm training a lady that is actually she's not type 1, but she's using a CGM right now just to learn about what her blood sugar is doing. And the other day, I was training her and she showed me her CGM. She had this humongous spike to 170. And I was like, "What did you eat?" And literally she ate 40 grams of carbohydrate. And I'm like, "Yeah." And she was like, I can't believe that happened." I'm like, to me, I'm thinking to myself, well, of course, you ate s high starchy carbohydrates, 40 grams of them, and on top of that, you had no fiber and you didn't have any protein with it. You had a little bit of fat, right? So, like, okay, so this is why now we can have a different conversation about blood sugar and, like, so, I want people to understand that piece, that if you are having post-meal spikes, it's probably because of your strategy on how you're dosing, how much you're dosing, and the quality of the food that you're consuming.
Yeah, and maybe a further piece, 2 things I say, total or timing, what's going on?
Yeah.
But the quality point too, you can eat not so quality foods and still have quality blood
Yeah.
sugar. Not my long-term nutrition recommendation, hello, but eat the freaking donut, but make sure you understand the blood sugar behind it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love
Y
that.
yeah, I think that the when I tell people that too, and going back to your previous question about what do people, um, you know, think that's crazy that I say, um, I think the other thing that people have to understand is all the stuff that I talk about, all the stuff that Maddie talks about, everything that we talk about, you have a choice. That you have a choice. You have a choice to learn how your body and how you are going to manage your own blood sugar or not. I mean, I've talked to people that are just so mentally in chaos that they're choosing not to do all of the things that they know they should do. I mean, we've met people that we all have met people like that. But that is the
Absolutely.
I think that is the most powerful thing about being a human being because we have the power of making our own decisions and our own choices.
Yeah, absolutely, and if we think about the power of that choice too, it can feel really daunting to have to make that choice, to have to find the information, to have to do all these things. But I actually think about one of my clients, a teenager that I do work with, and she's like, "I just want to be a kid, Maddie. I just
Mhm,
want to be a kid." Like I understand that. I do because I was your age when I
mhm.
was going through a lot of those emotions. I know it. I remember it vividly. I guess we we store all those negative memories, right? But I asked her this one day and it changed the game. We have choice, right? And that is the lesson we're rolling with, that we're taking it one step further. You have a choice. And here's the choice. Would you rather spend 5 really good minutes figuring out the carbs, figuring out the dose,
Mhm.
baking for all that to trade 5 hours of the glucoster, blood sugar roller coaster? Would you take what choice do you wanna make? 5 minutes, 5 hours? Because if we don't make that choice, what happens? Are we going low? Are we going high? Are we chasing it? Correct, 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 beeper, CGM, CGM, CGM. If that's I would trade that 5 minutes for 5 hours every time, I think. And to me, like, I'm lazy. Give me 5 minutes of work for 5 hours of freedom, relatively speaking. You have the choice.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not always exactly 5 minutes, 5 hours, but, we figure out the numbers. The numbers always
But the
change if we've
concept
learned
yeah.
anything.
But the concept of what you're saying is so powerful, right? Because it even simplifies it even more because that's a choice that everyone is gonna relate to, right?
Yeah,
Not everyone can maybe relate to, if you don't take care of yourself now, would you rather take care of yourself now to avoid lots of complications and troubles later? Not everyone's going to align with that or understand that because, "Oh, I feel like $1,000,000 now. I feel I can run a marathon. I don't have to deal with none of that stuff. I have great blood sugars. I have great A1Cs," like and that's the story that they tell themselves. right? So I love the simplicity of how you broke that down.
Yeah, thank you. This is actually something I talk about with individuals without T1D as well.
Mm.
When I'm explaining it, I have a lot of different analogies I use, but I talk about this because people are like, oh, yeah, I'd rather have 5 hours of freedom for 5 minutes of hard work. Yeah, that makes sense to a lot of people, and sometimes it's hard to make that 5 minutes a hard work choice, right? It is hard, and sometimes we don't always make that choice, and that is what it is. That 5 minutes, what I'm alluding to is the card counting, maybe the pre-bolus, maybe the strategy, but whatever it may be, the measuring of foods, whatever that 5 minutes is for the next 5 hours, that's like a digestive timeline I keep in mind. But again, it works for someone even without T1D. And I think I like this connection too for parents of someone with
Mhm.
T1D or friends and family of someone with T1D, because it's like, oh, okay, think back to the 180 choices. You can simplify your day down to 25. That's the 5 minutes. Or if we don't take that 5 minutes of intentionality, it turns into the 180. It's the exact same conversation
Yeah.
in a different dynamic.
Yeah. And hopefully we get to a point where that 5 minutes turns into 2 minutes or 1 minute or 60 seconds because we've done it so many times that it's like second nature now.
Yes, second nature. And speaking of, maybe it's innovation, maybe it's new trends, maybe it's new science. So, is there anything that you are potentially excited about that's happening right now or happening in the near future that you want to chat about or let people know about?
Um, I think I think for me that there's 2 really exciting things that I'm really excited about, but I'm also very one of them I'm very, very leery about and just kinda, like, have my, like, you know, barriers up about. The one I'm really excited about is the concept of the true closed loop system that Beta Bionic is talking about with using glucagon to really get rid of all lows. I think this is a really, really interesting people for especially for people that are having challenges figuring out the dosing strategies and how that's gonna work exercise-wise during the day, basal rates, like the whole 9 yards, during, food, whatever it might be. Because it really takes away the thing that the one fear that I think that I would say the people that have tons of fears of diabetes, over 60 or 70% of people have, which is fear of lows. And so I think that is a really interesting technology, innovation, evolution of the insulin pump that is very close to being on the horizon. I'm very, very excited about.
I'm excited about that too. For anyone who isn't listening, glucagon can or isn't diabetic and is listening, glucagon is essentially the opposite of what insulin does. Insulin brings the blood sugar down. Glucagon can help bring it back up. If you don't have diabetes, your body does this. Our body does not. So we often talk about insulin, but glucagon is essential there too. Yeah, Beta Bionics has been popping off with some fun updates coming out there. I
Crazy.
got to
It's crazy.
chat with them at a conference, and they were just I mean, like, the individual I got to speak with was so cool, and it provided me with a little bit of hope. And then sometimes I think at the end of the day, I don't know if I believe that we'll truly ever have a cure. I hope it happens, but for now, just holding on to the hope that it's gonna get easier and easier from here is I don't know, it makes me feel giddy almost.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I think about I talk to a lot of people that have diabetes for 50 plus years on the show. I've talked to so many people. And unfortunately, they grew up or they started their journey during what I call the dark ages, pre-technology. And I don't know how they did it. I do not understand, or I can't fathom, like, never being able to look at your blood sugar, never like, not being able to open my phone and see my blood sugar for 24/7, having to prick my finger every single day, all the time, even though I did it before CGM, but
Yeah.
like, having to go back to and that's the only thing I know.
Mhm.
Or even the individual who couldn't check their blood sugar, and they had to go to the hospital to pee on something to actually get a blood sugar reading. Like,
Yeah.
one little picture in time out of 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think the where we have come from the evolutionary perspective of where technology has come is astronomically insane. It is it sucks to say it, but it has never, ever been in the history of humanity a better time to be a type 1 diabetic.
We're pretty lucky. We're pretty lucky. That's perspective. It's not to minimize our feelings, but yeah, we're lucky for all the technology we have. It is so helpful. And you know how I reference analogies that I make all the time? I talk about like having the CGM for me is like being able to drive a car and you can see out of the car. And then not having my CGM is like driving a car that you cannot see out of. Good luck staying safe. Good luck not crashing into anything. Good luck staying alive. That is terrifying. And I feel like it's so similar sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a crazy world that we live in, and going back to the other part of this question, the thing that I've got blinders about is the supposedly cures with the stem cell stuff, with the injections, and with all these things that these different companies are coming out with. My whole thing when it first started was, "Okay, this is really cool, but you're just taking one condition and giving them another condition because now you're getting rid of the immune system because you have to take immune suppressants
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
m most of the ones that are being worked on. There's one company, I believe, that's working on one that it's not gonna require, immunosuppressants, but it's still interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're also putting another foreign object into the body that's gonna get attacked at some like, it's just it's going to get attacked. It's a foreign thing. Even if they program it to hide from the immune system, I don't know how they're gonna do this. It's super cool to think about,
Mhm.
but that's always been my roadblock is, like, I would rather live with diabetes and go through the day-to-day challenges than now lose my immune system, and now I have to deal with all of the other things that are out there in the world that are trying to kill me as well.
Yeah, I'm with you there completely. The evil you know, the evil you don't, right?
Yeah.
That's something I was talking about with the journalist earlier, and he was actually telling me about how he interviewed an individual who had received some stem cell therapies that did not require immunosuppressants. That's the
Mm.
first time I've ever heard about that successfully. I have no science or data to back that up. I have no specifics to back that up. So if you're listening, please be mindful. These are just ideas that are circulating. But it was very I questioned it, but I also, again, that little moment of hope. I was like, okay, here's the other thing too. I would take diabetes over a lot of things. Diabetes is so freaking difficult. Don't get me wrong, and it is expensive. It is time consuming. It's just a lot. But I mean, I think about it like, well, at least I don't have several life-threatening allergies always trying to kill me for, like, things that are in all of the foods everywhere. I can
Yeah.
still live my life, I can still go out to the restaurant, I can still hang out with the friends, I can still X, Y, or Z. I just have to figure out the blood sugar. And the just part of that is not to minimize that experience, but it's to say, "Oh, well, I have the skill, I have the power, and hopefully you feel that way too, and if you don't, find those things, learn those things, talk to people, learn from us, follow us online, make sure that you're watching the day-to-day information that is being shared. You'll learn. You absorb just by being around people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
super crazy. It's super interesting.
It is.
I'm really excited for the horizon, but I'm very skeptical.
Yes, I think that that is a pretty common sentiment. So I appreciate the skepticism that you've brought to the table as well. I think that's important because I think that hope can build, but we don't ever want to lose it as well. And sometimes when people are like, "Oh yeah, there's, you know, 2020 whatever, it's going to be a cure, 2030 whatever, it's going to be a cure." They've been talking about a cure since the 80s, folks, just to be clear. Like this is not as fast moving as the media would have you believe because right, they're selling something. And so we have to know, okay, cool. They're working on it. That's awesome. They want it to happen. That's awesome. But who knows when? And until then, we get to have this awesome, really deep human connection with someone we don't know immediately. And that is one of the lights at the end of the tunnel for me. So I thought of another question. If you'll hear me, I know we've talked through so many awesome ideas. We've talked a little nutrition, we've talked a little exercise, we've talked a lot of mindset, we've talked about burnout, we've talked about the up and coming, we've talked about it all. And so very simple slash complex question. If you had to give people living with type 1 one daily habit or daily idea even to adopt, do you know what that would be?
There's so many things, Maddie. Put me on
I
the spot.
know, I know, I know. There's, the 42 factors chart, let's just be clear, if you don't know what that is, 42 factors that impact blood sugar, I think that's the starting point. Like, there's so many factors that aren't on that list. So, if
Yeah,
you haven't seen it, this is a tough question, I recognize that. If
yeah.
it's too tough, maybe we could do, like, 2 or 3.
No, nothing's too tough. It's just, you gotta dig deep here, Maddie. I gotta
You
dig deep.
do, you do.
And actually, before I do that, I wanna make a comment on the 42 factors thing, 'cause this is really hilarious. When I first heard about this, when I first heard about the 42 factors and I looked it up and I looked up Adam, I mean, I got Adam's book on my shelf
Mhm.
and, I started, like, thinking about it. I'm like, "There's no way. There's no freaking way there's 42 factors." So then I did an experiment on myself and started, like, listing all the things, and guess what? I came up with 42 myself. Some of them were what he had. I didn't have some that he had. So it's interesting perspective when you look at the things that other people are bringing up and trying to implement that into your own life. For me, that's a huge thing. But back to your question. Okay, let's dig deep here. Let's go back to this question. Um, what's one piece of advice that I would give someone?
Yeah.
So, I think for me, it all comes down to one thing, and this is at the forefront of everything I talk about. It doesn't matter where you start, you have to start somewhere. And when you do that, okay, there is one thing that you have to keep in mind that is the ultimate goal, and one thing only, and that is to figure out what's going to work for you. Because what works for me, what works for Maddie, what works for your neighbor down the street is not it might not work for you. Maybe some things might, but all those things might not work for me or work for you. Just like when me and Maddie were talking about exercise earlier, and I mentioned, like, I always, like, skyrocket when I do strength training, I always plummet when I do high intensity. That's not the same for every single person, right? So how I manage that is completely different. I literally could do the same exact strength workout today and do it again in 2 or 3 days with the same exact variables and have a different result. And that's why this is so important for people, for me, to get people to understand is you have to figure out what's going to work, but then on the flip side of that, understand that that is going to evolve over time. How I manage my blood sugar now is completely different the way I managed my blood sugar even 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that is the biggest thing is it comes back to that specific thing. Wherever you're starting, it doesn't matter whether it's you're starting listening to a podcast, whether it's you're starting looking at the 42 factors, whether it's you're getting on the phone with someone that you know that has type 1 diabetes, whether it's you're just scrolling aimlessly looking for content in education, whether it's you're joining a Facebook group, okay? I'm very biased because I don't want people to go years and years and years with have being overwhelmed and being out of control and not feeling in control. So for me, I'm very biased, and if I could tell myself 18 years ago when I was first diagnosed, the number one thing I would tell that person is go find a coach, is go find someone that has gone through this, that can teach you how to manage the day to day. Don't wait on your doctor to do it because they're not gonna be able to do it in the time frame that you need to feel amazing every single day. That I think that for me, that's it.
That's awesome. It's up to you. It's up to you, and you said so many things. If you don't have a friend with diabetes, now you have 2. If you don't have a coach with diabetes, now you have 2. I know I can speak with full confidence, and I know I can speak for Coach Ken when I say this. We are here for you. We choose to do this for a reason. We want to help you. And if there is a way that we can do that, we will. We will find the way. That's what we wish someone would have done for us, right? So
Mhm.
we're doing it for you. I mean, we do it for ourselves every day. Why not share that wonderful, wonderful support with other people? And so in that spirit, Coach Ken and a strong, make sure people know exactly where they can find you and simplifying diabetes.
Yeah, so you can find me probably the easiest place to find me is on Instagram. My handle's Coach Ken. The E in the Ken is the number 3. I also can be found on my podcast, the Healthy Diabetic Podcast. You can to it wherever you listen to podcasts. Hopefully here soon we're gonna go all video and it'll be video format on YouTube as well. We'll see. Getting ready to create a whole new studio down here, so I'm super pumped about that. You can find me on the website. It's simplifyingdiabetes.com. If you're interested in coaching, my gosh, it's the best place. I my it's funny, Maddie, because we were just talking about this. I have really good friends that are business people, and they listen to my show. They know what I talk about. And on my show, I constantly tell people that if you don't align with me, you better go somewhere else. And my business friends tell me all the time, "Why do you say this stuff? Why do you telling people to go?" I'm like, "Are you serious right now? Because it's not about me. It's not about Maddie. It's not about us." I mean, Maddie just said that. Um, one of my one of my first business coaches ever said something that will stick with me till the day I die, which is, "There's so many fish in the sea. Why can't everyone share, collaborate, and help everybody?" And that's what I do every single day, is I
Yes.
try to collaborate with as many people as possible. I try to push people that are maybe out of my scope of practice to other colleagues, other coaches. If there's someone that needs some high level nutrition stuff that's out of my scope of practice, guess where I'm sending them? I'm sending them to Maddie. Let's go. You know? So it's for me, that's a big push for me, because if I don't if I don't support people in the way I was not supported, then I'm not gonna feel fulfilled. So, which is one of the big reasons why I started the podcast, and which was the huge reason why I got out of a really successful business to start a whole 'nother business on my own, right? So, it's if you don't feel fulfilled, then what's the point?
Yeah. If you don't feel fulfilled, if you don't feel aligned, I stand by that sentiment fully. I believe in collaboration over competition. There are so many fish in the sea. Also, I can't help everyone by myself. You can't help everyone by
Mhm.
yourself. We have to find more people. There have to be more people in this. Think about how overwhelmed endocrinologists are, right? We have to be there for each other. We have to show up for each other. And so if there's, someone who wants to work with a coach and they're like, hey, I want to work with a coach. I do kind of want to learn a lot more about exercise. I know the basics, right? I'm not a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a personal trainer. I'm none of those things, right? And so that's where I would say, hey, maybe find Coach Ken. I know he knows more than I do, right?
Yeah.
And when we do that, when we're able to do that, what that does is that's the why me. Why me? Me. Why Coach Ken? Coach Ken. Like awesome Coach Ken. Awesome anyone else in this industry. If you need someone and you don't feel aligned, there is someone else. There is someone else, and we're happy to help you find them too. Like if it's not us, we respect that. We'll help you find something. We want you to do well. We want you to thrive. That's the goal. That's the reason why we're here. So, what you have to do though, in order to make sure you know that, is reach out. We want to say hi. We want to get to know you.
Yep.
Find us, chat with us. We'd love to help if we can. Absolutely, please. So, we will make sure that all of that information on where you can find Coach Ken, that is going to be in the show notes. Make sure that you're checking that out. If you are curious about coaching, if you're curious about getting into someone's network who speaks the language, who talks the talk and walks the walk, find that information down below for sure. Coach Ken, as always, it's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you for such insightful conversation, quality conversation, and for pushing, for continuing to push for what we believe in. You and I know, again, we're so aligned.
Mhm.
We're believing people can do it. Diabetes is tough. So are you. Mic drop.
Love it. What a place to end right there.
Absolutely. And for now, everyone, take care. That's it for today, my friends, but the fun doesn't stop here. If you liked this episode and want more real talk diabetes support, come hang out with me on social. Just search Type 1 Type Fun, all words, or head to type1typefun.com for tools, tips, freebies, and real life resources you can actually use. And if this episode made you laugh, learn, or feel a little more seen, feel free to leave a comment, give it a like, share it with someone you love. But until next time, live empowered, be silly, have fun, and eat some carbs.
The information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast.